guys, welcome back to exmolex. I very often get accused by Mormons of lying about the Mormon church. One of the most common comments that I get from Mormons is something about how I'm lying. Oftentimes they'll say that I'm lying or that I'm not being truthful about the church or whatever, and I immediately comment back and I'm like, what did I lie about? Can you provide an example of somewhere in the video that I said something untrue? Because I always want to correct myself. If I said something that was not true, that's definitely an accident, and I want to be able to have a chance to correct it. Especially like on TikTok where I'm making short form content. If I see a comment that says you're lying about something, I'm like, what was it? Tell me, give me an example. I will reply to your comment and I will tell everybody that I made a mistake. 99% of the time, those people just don't ever say anything back. So I never get to the bottom of what my apparent lie was. And I mean, big shocker, right? But I decided to do a little deep dive. I went to my YouTube studio and you can search through comments on there. So I typed in lie and I searched through to see if I could find anything specific that Mormons were accusing me of lying about so that I could respond to it and either, you know, set the record straight and say, I'm so sorry, I got it wrong, here's the truth. Or, you know, go the opposite way and say, nope, I definitely was not lying. That is true. Now, going through all of those comments, I was able to find 4 specific things that Mormons have accused me of lying about in my videos. And I want to set the record straight. So we're going to go through these things one by one and see whether I was lying or telling the truth using evidence, which is very important to find out the truth. Before we get started, I do want to say I have always tried to tell the truth and be honest on my channel. If I ever was incorrect about something or got a fact or a date or whatever wrong, it was by mistake. I would never get on this channel and just lie blatantly. And here's the thing. I grew up Mormon. I was a Mormon for 25 years, and part of being raised as a Mormon was that I was always taught to be honest. I was taught that honesty is a moral principle. It's one of the most important ones, that I should never lie. I should always tell the truth. And so, you know, it's ingrained within me as a very important part of my identity to just be honest. And that's part of the reason that I decided to leave the Mormon church, because I felt like I had been lied to. There were many things that the church never told me. And usually it wasn't a straight up lie. They didn't lie to my face. It's just that the church and the leaders and the things that they were publishing and teaching me in church and in Sunday school and in seminary were lies by omission. They were withholding important information from me, which is a lie. So if a Mormon watches my channel and thinks that I'm lying about something and finds a problem with that, I understand, because I know what it's like to be lied to and I hated it. So let's set the record straight. The first thing that I have been accused about lying about in my comments is Joseph Smith having multiple underage wives. I actually found multiple examples of people saying that I was lying about this. This is just an anti-Mormon lie. It is not true. Some people would say like, well, he was sealed to, you know, certain women, but it wasn't a marriage. It was like almost an adoption type of sealing. I saw a couple of comments that said that. There were other ones that said that that just wasn't true at all. So let's go ahead and look at the LDS Church's official website. If you've been around the channel a while, you know that I use the church's official website as a source pretty often, because when you grow up and are part of the church teaches its members to only trust church sources. So when I make a video on this channel, especially if it's going out to people that are either questioning the church or, you know, have been associated with the church, a lot of us toward the beginning of the journey especially, we stray away from any website that's not an official church website. So that's why I'm going to mainly try to get my evidence from official church sources, like church books that were published by the church or the church's official website, stuff that prophets have said, things like that. So the LDS Church has a section of its website that's dedicated to church history topics. So we're going to go to church history and then Joseph Smith and plural marriage. After receiving a revelation commanding him to practice plural marriage, Joseph Smith married multiple wives. Let's rewind that. Joseph Smith married multiple wives. So was I lying? But wait, some of them did clarify that I was lying when I said he married multiple underage wives. So let's keep going. Next, we're going to go to the Gospel Topics Essays portion of the church's official website, and we're going to scroll down to where it says plural marriage. And then we're going to go to plural marriage in Kirtland and Nauvoo. And then we're going to go to Joseph Smith and plural marriage. All right, it's talking about the women that Joseph Smith took as his wives. It says most of those sealed to Joseph Smith were between 20 and 40 years of age at the time of their sealing. The oldest, Fanny Young, was 56 years old. The youngest was Helen Mar Kimball, who was sealed to Joseph several months before her 15th birthday. AKA, she was 14 years old. So that's at least one underage wife that the church admits to on their website, 14 years old. Now, I will give you this. It is very difficult to find information on all of Joseph Smith's wives on the official church website. They don't really want to go into detail on it. They do admit to quite a lot of things, especially in this essay. They admit to the fact that Emma, Joseph's first wife, didn't know about all of his wives. They talk about how it was really hard for Emma, that she had a very difficult time accepting that Joseph Smith was taking so many plural wives. They talk about a few that she did know about, but the fact that she probably didn't know about a lot of them. If you want to know specifically more about each of Joseph's wife's names and ages, you're going to have to go a little farther than just looking at the church's official website, because they don't really talk about it in depth. However, we do know that Joseph Smith took many wives, several of which were under the age of 18. Fanny Alger was 16, Sarah Ann Whitney was 17, Flora Ann Woodworth was 16, Sarah Lawrence was 17, Lucy Walker was 17, Helen Mar Kimball was 14, Nancy Winchester was 15. If you are a Mormon who came here because you saw the title, wanted to know what I was lying about, I really encourage you using the church's official sources, okay? You don't even have to go off their website. Go to the church's official website, look at the Gospel Topics essays, and read the Gospel Topics essays about plural marriage, because for me, when I read through them, as a Mormon, I was flabbergasted about the stuff that the church never told me. And I still think that it's ridiculous that to this day, they don't go in depth into all of the wives. When I was growing up, I heard a lot about Emma Hale Smith and her relationship with Joseph. And somehow, some way, through all of my years in seminary and in Sunday school, we just didn't go into any of Joseph's other wives. And no matter what way you spin it, Joseph Smith took multiple wives. And he took several that were underage. Whether or not you believe that these were just eternal marriages and that there was no physical relationship involved, I think that it's dishonest for the church to have spent so long not acknowledging any of that information, to the point where I still get comments to this day that say that Joseph Smith only had one wife. That's just not true. The next thing I get accused of lying about is that the LDS Church is a cult. Now, in my videos, I think I have said directly that the LDS Church is a cult, and I do stand by that. I have done many videos comparing the LDS Church to several different cult behaviors, like with the bite model. In my opinion, the LDS Church does qualify as a cult, so let me provide you with a few examples of why I think that is. We're gonna start with the dictionary definition, and I actually don't agree with using the dictionary definition of cults to really study cults and get to know them, because it's a lot more nuanced than just the dictionary definition. But for the sake of including everything, this is the dictionary definition: a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. It also says a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. Okay, so if we are honest with ourselves, the LDS Church absolutely falls under that umbrella. And don't argue that the church is huge, because it is a very, very small number of people when you look at the world as a whole. Now, like I said, I don't believe in just going off of the dictionary definition, because it's so broad, and that doesn't really help us when we're trying to understand exactly what makes a cult. So I believe in examining it more closely than just the dictionary definition. Now, I've done videos where I talk about the bite model, which I think is a very good way to compare different groups and see how cult-like they are. I've been doing a series where I look at different points on the bite model and compare them to the LDS Church. I'm going to leave a link to that playlist if you want to know more about it. But let's just go over Few of the things that are in the bite model that I feel like line up with the LDS Church. Restrict or control sexuality, control clothing and hairstyle, exploit you financially, deliberately withhold and distort information, forbid you from speaking with ex-members and critics, discourage access to non-cult sources of information, divide information into insider versus outsider doctrine, generate and use propaganda extensively, instill black versus white, us versus them, and good versus evil thinking, instill irrational fears or phobias of questioning or leaving the group, label some emotions as evil, worldly, sinful, or wrong, shower you with praise and attention, love bombing, shun you if you disobey or disbelieve, teach that there is no happiness or peace outside of the group. Now, in my series where I talk about the bite model, I go in depth and use specific church sources and things that prophets have said, teachings that have been on the church website, to talk about each of those things and things that promote or, go along with each of these points that the church has done and said over the years. So for me, I can look at this list and say, these are things that I think the church does. Not everybody's going to agree with me right off the bat, but I think that if you want to go more in depth and look at each of these things and see the evidence I provide for each of these points, you can go look at the bite model playlist that I talked about. Since the bite model is not like the end all be all of cults, I want to show you a few other examples of other things that people have put together saying this is what a cult is, and we can compare it to the LDS Church, or you can in your own time. Exclusive knowledge is proclaimed. Only members have the knowledge for means to salvation. Undue influence or excessive control of members' lives. Questioning the leader or basic tenets is not allowed. Cults follow a charismatic leader, living or dead, whose teachings are considered of the highest importance. This leader may be considered a genius or may be considered a religious figure like a messiah or prophet. No meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. The members won't recognize they belong to a cult. I think that if you are completely honest with yourself and you really do your homework about what is a cult, what makes a group a cult, what are the warning signs of a cult, you're going to find that the LDS Church falls in line with many, many, many warning signs of a cult. If you're a Mormon, I'm not telling you that you need to believe that you're in a cult, because I understand. I've been there. I would have never, ever agreed that I was in a cult when I was a member. But I think that if you are honest with yourself, you can see where I'm coming from when I say that the Mormon Church is a cult. And that when that line comes out of my mouth, I'm not just lying. I have good reasons for saying what I'm saying, if that makes sense. The next thing that I got accused about lying about is the word Mormon or Mormonism. They say there is no such thing as Mormon. It is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that when I say Mormon, I'm lying about the term, basically. They say that it's just a derogatory nickname that was made up by people who hate the church, and that we shouldn't ever say it because it's as bad as saying slurs. This one is one of the most frustrating comments to get, because I feel like it takes away from the important things that I'm trying to talk about when it comes to the Mormon Church. When it comes to the LDS Church, whatever you want to hear. I'll make a video where I talk about, here are some really horrible things that a prophet said about Black people. And instead of talking about the meat and potatoes of that video and the racism, I get comments that are like, it's not Mormon. We are not Mormons. That's a bad word. And it's like, babe, that's not the point. I don't even care if you don't want to call yourself a Mormon, then don't. But it's not the point. And I think that that might be part of why Russell M. Nelson put such emphasis on getting the members to stop calling themselves Mormon, because he knew that people would go out there and start correcting everybody in every single comment section on every single video I make. Just about, there's gonna be somebody that's like, it's not Mormon. That's not the point. Let me point out to you that the church's I Am a Mormon campaign cost millions of dollars, and it was not very long ago. Here's some evidence of that. The church used the word Mormon for decades and decades and decades. I grew up in the church my whole life, and we referred to ourselves as Mormons. In fact, although I'm not a member anymore, most of my family still is. And guess what? They are still referring to themselves as Mormons. I hate to break it to you. If you are in this bubble where everybody in your life, all of your family members, have jumped on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints bandwagon and are no longer using nicknames for the church, but there is a really large population of the church that does not care and is still saying Mormon. Personally, I think that when people comment on my videos and say that I'm lying when I'm calling the church the Mormon church or saying Mormonism, I think they're lying, because how can you not know? This campaign against using nicknames for the church is quite recent. So unless you're like 7 years old, you know that everybody called it the Mormon church. You know that people still do. I think you're just trying to distract from bigger issues and you're being dishonest. The next thing people say I'm lying about is that tithing in the church is required. Let's look at a few examples from the church's official website where they confirm that tithing is a requirement. This one's in a pamphlet about what tithing is. Obedience to this commandment is a requirement for baptism into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So to even become a member, you have to pay tithing. It is a requirement. Let's see, this one's in a Q&A. Only those church members who pay a full tithing can receive temple ordinances, and the Lord tells us that those who pay tithing will not be burned at his second coming. In other words, if you don't pay tithing, you can't go to the temple. It's one of the temple recommend interview questions. Do you pay a full tithe? No man may hope or expect to have an inheritance on this celestial globe who has failed to pay his tithing. In other words, you're not making it to the highest level of heaven without paying your tithing. Prophet Spencer W. Kimball, the Lord makes clear that tithing is his law and is required of all of his followers. To fail to meet this obligation is to deny ourselves the promises and is to omit a weighty matter. It is a transgression, not an inconsequential oversight. To go to the temple requires each of us to be worthy to access the house of the Lord. When we receive or renew a temple recommend, we are asked by our local leaders, bishop and stake president, if we are obedient to the Lord's commandments. Among the recommend questions, one is related to the payment of tithing. Are you a full tithe payer? Listen, I have done so many videos about the importance of paying tithing in the LDS church. I have done more research about tithing specifically than I think most members in the LDS church have ever done about it. Because so many people say you don't have to pay tithing. It's not a requirement. And listen, it is a requirement to pay tithing in order to be baptized. It is a requirement to pay tithing in order to go to the temple. And then on top of that, it is a requirement to go to the temple to make it to the celestial kingdom, the highest level of heaven. When I say it's a requirement, I'm quoting your leadership. And I understand, and I think everybody does, you can be a member of the church without paying tithing. I mean, you're supposed to pay tithing to become a member, right? Like we looked at, you have to be a full tithe payer to be baptized, or commit to being a full tithe payer to be baptized. And again, in order to get to the temple, unless you lie about it, or if you have zero income, you have to pay tithing to get into the temple to get to heaven. Technically, you could be a member and just not pay tithing and not go to the temple or lie. Is it a thing? Is it a rule? Is it something that the prophets and apostles bring up over and over and over? Is it something you're going to hear about in church, in Sunday school, in seminary, in sacrament meeting talks, in general conference, in ensign articles, in the new era? Yes. It's going to be coming at you from all sides that you should be paying tithing. You're going to have a meeting with your bishop to talk about if you're paying tithing. Tithing is a requirement in the LDS church, and I don't care what way you're trying to spin it to make it seem like it's not. If you look at all the information and you do your research and you sit there and you say tithing isn't required in the church, you are being dishonest with yourself and others. Who is lying here? Because it's not me. I'm so sorry. I need to calm down. Anyway, I would simply love it if you are a Mormon and you came and you clicked on this video out of your own free will and choice and you watched it and you still think there's things that I've lied about. Please let us all know. Write in the comments what I have lied about, and I will go through and I will read these comments, and if they make any sense, because sometimes they don't, if they make any sense, I will respond to them and I will try to set the record straight. Either yes, I was lying, or I made a mistake, my bad, or I will show you how I wasn't lying. I have a headache. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. A special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all so very much. Extra special thank you to Doug Davis for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.